The air around the practice room had changed. What once echoed with water and effortless danger was now filled with a strange tension that lingered even when they were together. The staff could sense it. The makeup artist who once hummed softly as she brushed away stray strands of his hair now worked in silence, eyes lowered, hands trembling slightly when they brushed his skin. Whispers had started small, a few stylist exchanging curious glances when they saw the way he looked at her reflection in the mirror, how she smiled only when he was in the room. But soon those whispers turned into murmurs and murmurs into rumors, unstoppable, sharp-edged, and merciless. By the time the company caught wind of it, the situation had already spiraled. Fan forums were ablaze with speculation. Who's the girl in his behind-the-scenes clip? She's always near him. Or, they dating? He's changed lately, distant during fan meets. It must be her fault. This is unprofessional. He's changing lately. What happened to his focus? That girl should be fired before she ruins him. Comments flooded in, some curious, some angry, most cruel. And like wildfire, it spread across social media, forcing the company to act before it damaged their Golden Boy's image. One morning Chef was called into the management office. The corridor leading there felt longer than usual, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. Every step echoed the same dread in her chest. When she entered, two senior managers were seated with grave expressions, paper spread before them, and a faint coldness in the air-conditioned room that felt different from usual. "Please sit down," one of them said. She obeyed quietly, folding her trembling hands in her lap. "We'll be direct," the woman continued. "There have been rumors about you and him. It's spreading quickly. Fans are reacting badly. We cannot afford this kind of distraction right now, not before the new album release." She swallowed hard. I understand. You have been a valuable member of the team," the other added, his tone softer, almost regretful. "But the situation leaves us no choice. You can either take a leave permanently if you wish or stay, but maintain a clear boundary. No private interactions, no familiarity outside of your role." The words sank deep like stones in her chest. Two choices, and both hurt equally. "I'll think about it," she said softly. They nodded, dismissing her gently. But as she stepped out, her vision blurred for a moment, the bright hallways against the wall, closing her eyes. For the first time since she joined the company, she felt like an outsider again. The next few days were torture. She tried to act as if everything was fine, focusing on her work, keeping her tone professional, her expression neutral, but it was impossible not to notice how he had changed too. He barely met her eyes. If she reached out to adjust his collar, he subtly stepped back. If she smiled faintly while fixing his mic, he looked away before her gaze could meet his. The distance was clear, intentional, painful. He wasn't cruel, he was careful, too careful. Every gesture, every word, measured and rehearsed like a line he couldn't afford to break. It hurt more than anger ever could. Once during a late-night rehearsal, she accidentally brushed against his sleeve while handing him a towel. He froze, just for a second, then took it without looking at her. "Thanks," he muttered. That was the only word he said to her the whole day. By the end of the week, she stopped trying. She did her job silently, keeping to herself, hiding the itch behind a professional mask that fooled almost everyone except herself. Every night, she went home and told herself this was temporarily, that maybe once things calmed down they could at least talk, not as idol and staff, not as people bound by rules, but as two souls who had once understood each other without words. But then came the fans' protests, trending hashtags, angry emails, calls for her removal. The company tightened restrictions further. She could no longer even enter the rehearsal room without prior approval. That was the final push. One evening after everyone left, She stood alone in the dressing room, his jacket still dropped over the chair, the faint scent of his perfume lingering in the air. She reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed the fabric. It felt like touching a memory, warm once, now fading. Tears burned her eyes as she whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe this is where it ends." The next morning, she typed her resignation letter. She didn't tell anyone, not even her closest colleague. She printed it out, placed it neatly in an envelope, and left it on the manager's desk before walking out quietly, without looking back. Her hands were cold, but her heart felt strangely calm. This time, it wasn't an impulsive decision. It was acceptance. She took her flight back to India 2 days later, carrying nothing but her suitcase, a few memories, and a silence that weighed heavier than words. The first day she didn't show up. No one questioned it. By the second day, Hannah noticed. Didn't say she'd be late. She asked a fellow makeup artist. No idea. Maybe she's unwell. By the third day, Jungkook began to notice too. He looked around during prep, expecting her quiet presence somewhere nearby. She wasn't there. Another artist handled his makeup, polite, efficient, unfamiliar. "Is she sick?" he asked casually that morning while getting his makeup done. The new staff member froze for a second before replying awkwardly, I don't know, sir. She hasn't come since on Monday." He frowned slightly but didn't say anything more. Yet, that day, his performance felt off, his rhythm slightly delayed, his expression a little emptier. By the fifth day, something inside him felt uneasy. He asked Hannah casually between reversals. "Where's Ing? She hasn't been around." Hannah hesitated. I'm not sure. Who handled something with her? Maybe she took a break." Jungkook nodded slowly, but the tightness in his chest didn't ease. Something felt wrong, too quiet, too sudden. That evening, when he returned to his dressing room, there was an envelope sitting neatly on the table with his name written in careful handwriting. His heart sank. He didn't know why, but something told him this wasn't good. He took the letter with hesitant fingers, staring at the familiar handwriting on the front, his name written softly, carefully, as if she was afraid it would hurt to write it. He hesitated before opening it. The scent of the paper, faintly floral, familiars, made his pulse quicken. "Dear Jungkook, by the time you read this, I'll be already gone. Please don't think I left because I was angry or hurt. I'm leaving because it's the only thing I can do to make things right, for you, for your dreams, and for the world that belongs to you. These past months have been the most beautiful part of my journey. Working beside you, watching you perform, seeing how tirelessly you fight for your goals, it taught me more about dedication, passion, and strength than I ever knew before. But I'm also sorry. Sorry for the trouble my presence caused. Sorry for the pressure you never asked for. I never wanted to make anything harder for you. All I ever wanted was to help you in my quiet ways, to care for you, to support you, even if it had to be from shadows. Please don't blame yourself. You did nothing wrong. It's just that this world isn't kind to connections like ours, and maybe letting go is the only way I can protect you. I don't want to be the reason you lose anything, your career, your peace, or the love of the people who admire you. You've worked too hard for everything you have. So I'll step back, silently, gently. I'll keep cheering for you, just not from beside you anymore. I'll remember you always, the way you smiled when you were exhausted, the softness in your eyes when you thanked me, and the glow of the stage lights when you stood beneath them. You once told me that everyone sees the light, but no one feels how heavy it is. I hope someday that weight becomes lighter for you. Thank you for every smile, every word, every small kindness. You may not realize it, but you changed my days here more than you'll ever know. I hope one day, when all this noise fades, you will remember me kindly, not as a problem you had to fix, but as someone who truly wished you well. I'm going home now. Back to where I started. Back to silence. Please don't worry, I am fine. I just needed to let go before the world forced me to. Keep shining, Jungkook. Even if I'm not there to see it anymore. In. The letter ended with her name, simple, final. He read it twice, then a third time. He sat there for a long time, the paper trembling slightly in his hands. The sounds outside of footsteps, laughter, the chatter faded into a distant hum. He didn't realize his knuckles had turned white from gripping the page too tightly, or that his eyes had started to sting. He wanted to say something, anything, but all he could whisper to the empty room was, "She left. Just like that. You didn't have to go." And maybe, deep down, he knew she had to because he was the one who made her. As the time passed, he sank into the chair, clutching the letter, realizing how silent the room had become without her presence, the laughter, the quiet talks, the little notes, all gone. For the first time in years, Jungkook felt the weight of the stage lights pressing down on him, heavier than ever. He folded the letter carefully, as if it might break, and placed it inside his notebook, the same one where he wrote his lyrics. For days, he couldn't bring himself to write anything else. The next day, rehearsal felt wrong. Her chair in the makeup area were empty. The brushes were gone, her small mirror replaced. When one of the staff came to adjust his mic, she said softly, "She used to handle this, right?" And he only nodded. He wanted to say something, anything, but his throat tightened. In the following days, everything that used to feel routine now felt hollow. He'd walk past the break room and remember her laughter when she tried to explain the Indian snacks to others. He'd sit before a mirror and remember her fixing his collar, saying gently, "Now you look perfect." She was gone, and yet she was everywhere. During interviews, he smiled as usual. During fan meets, he said all the right words. But every night, when the light dimmed and the hotel room turned quiet, he replayed every small moment he had taken for granted. He remembered the way she used to look at him, not as Jungkook the idol, but as a person. That look was rare, and now it was gone. Weeks later, the rumors had faded, the company had moved on. Everyone seemed relieved, everyone except him. He found himself wondering late at night, did I really protect my career, or did I just lose the one person who made it mean something? He'd scroll through his phone half expecting a message from her. Sometimes he even drafted one himself. "Are you okay? I didn't mean for it to end like this. Can we talk?" But he never sent them. The world he lived in didn't allow personal emotions to slip through public cracks. Yet his thoughts betrayed him every day. He remembered the first time she smiled at him backstage, shy, nervous, holding a makeup brush with trembling fingers. He remembered how she used to hum softly while working, unaware that he'd stopped looking in the mirror just to listen. He remembered the night he had told her, "Everyone sees the light, but no one sees how heavy it feels." And her reply, still etched in his mind, "Maybe the light's waiting for someone to make it feel lighter." He hadn't realized back then she was that someone. Sometimes, between flights and rehearsals, he'd imagine alternate versions of his life. What if he had ignored the rumors? What if he had fought for her instead of pulling away? What if, just once, he had told her what he really felt instead of hiding behind caution? He imagined her still there, waiting backstage with her soft smile, holding coffee for him on cold mornings, teasing him when he overworked himself. He imagined being brave enough to care openly. He imagined them. But when he opened his eyes, it was always the same bright lights, screaming fans, and the loneliness that came after. Fame had given him everything, yet it had taken something he didn't realize. He couldn't live without peace. Months turned into years. Jungkook became busier than ever. New albums, world tours, countless interviews, all blurring into one endless cycle. But one night, in the middle of a concert rehearsal, he froze. The lights were too bright, the air too heavy. He stepped off stage and sat down near the edge, right where she had once found him sitting alone after a show. He closed his eyes. Everyone sees the light. No one sees how heavy it feels standing under it, he had said back then. And she had replied, softly, maybe the light's waiting for someone to make it feel lighter. It was in that moment, the echo of her voice in his mind, that he realized she hadn't just been a staff member. She had been his anchor, while everyone else demanded something from him. Perfection, charm, control. She had asked for nothing. She had just been there. The quiet presence he once overlooked had become the absence that haunted him. One sleepless night, Jungkook sat alone in his studio, staring at the empty page on his screen. His producer had left hours ago, the team gone home. But he stayed, restless. The glow of the console lights painted his face soft blue shadows. Music had always been his way of speaking what he couldn't say out loud. And that night, his silence broke. He began writing, slowly at first, then faster, as if his heart had been waiting for a permission. The words came out like pieces of memory. Her laugh, her notes, the way she said, "You did great today," the warmth in her eyes that no stage light could replicate. "You were the quiet light behind the stage, fixing every crack I tried to hide. Your hands were steady, mine were shaking, but you'd laugh and say, 'You will be fine.'" He stopped and stared at the page, emotion catching in his throat. For the first time since she left, he let himself cry, not as an idol, not as a performer, but as a Jungkook, a man who had lost something genuine in the noise of fame. That night he wrote until dawn. He didn't plan for it to be a song, it became one. He named it Behind the Stage Lights. It was for her. A way to say all the things he never could. He didn't realize it then, but this song, born out of silence and regret, would soon find its ways across ocean, reaching the person who would understand it without needing to ask a single question. The team hesitated at first. "It's too personal," his manager said. "Fans might ask questions." But Jungkook simply replied, "Then let them wonder. Some stories don't need answers, just honesty." When the song dropped, the internet exploded. Fans filled forums with speculation. Is this about someone? Why does it sound like a good being? The lyrics feel too real. Music reviewers praised it as Jungkook's most emotional track yet, raw, unfiltered, different from his usual polished image. But to In it wasn't just a song.